There you go.
Alrighty. Good evening, everyone. It is 5:31 and I'm calling the meeting to order. If everyone will rise for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of Mexico, the symbol of friendship and united nations. Alrighty, good evening, everyone. Mrs. Sandoval, will you do roll call, please?
Dr. Campbell?
Yes.
Ms. Hunt Bailey? Mr. Hudson?
Here.
Mr. Ortiz?
Here.
Mrs. Lee?
Present, we do indeed have a quorum this evening. Adoption of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda, and if so, what?
Madam President,
Yes, Mr. Widener.
I have a couple of modifications to the agenda.
Yes, sir.
Under item 5B, SEL, where it is blank there,
Yes,
we
sir.
would like to add the name Melinda Thayer.
Thank you.
And under action item 9B, I would like to remove B. We will still have the presentation, we just won't have the action.
Right. Anything else? Board members?
Switch.
Action item under 9B. That would be consideration of approval to purchase heating and cooling units. Is that the correct one, sir?
That's correct.
And would you state for us, please, why we're not having an action item, sir?
I do not have a price quote as of meeting time.
Perfect. Anything else, board members? All right, is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended, adding in recognitions, item B, the name Melinda Thayer, and then in action under action 9, we will remove action item B, which is the consideration of purchasing portable heating and cooling units for GHS. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second, please. Thank you, sir. It has been moved by Dr. Archambault and seconded by Mr. Ortiz to approve the agenda as amended, adding under item 5, recognitions B, Melinda Thayer, and then removing action under. All right, hearing none, we shall proceed to a roll call vote. Mrs. Sandoval, please.
Dr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Aye. Excuse me, aye. Motion carries. Adoption of minutes for February 4th, 2025. Are there any amendments to the minutes? If so, what?
Madam Chair. Madam President,
Yes, sir.
on the presentation, impact aid. If I recall right, I have made some inquiries with respect to the IPP. And I believe that it was reported that as part of the application and without signatures from the three tribes. That being the case, that's the only thing that I would ask that we include.
Thank you, sir.
Just a fact, that's all.
Anything else, board members? Mr. Whiter, is that a recommendation, sir?
I recommend that we approve the minutes as amended.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as?
I'll move to approve the minutes. Mr. Lemon?
Thank you. I was gonna cite it, but the thing started talking, excuse me. We will add Dr. Guy's comments as stated. Thank you. And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved as amended ordinance, adding Dr. Guy Archambault's IPP clarification. Is there any board members? Hearing none, we shall proceed to a roll call vote. Mrs. Sandoval, please.
Dr. Archambault,
Yes.
Mr. Hadamio,
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Aye, the motion carries. Next is citizens to address the board. Mrs. Sandoval, are there any citizens to address the board this evening? Thank you. There are no citizens to address. To move on to recommendations, Mr. Wagner.
Awesome. So, as you guys know, this is my favorite, the month we to recognize folks in our district that are doing an outstanding job of caring students first in the district. And so tonight we're going to be recognizing our SEL award recipients as well as our Edu champion for the month of February. Our recommendations came from the school sites. We reached out, Mrs. Jones was working to reach out to the school sites to try to get nominations for our award recipients this month. And we had our principal from Blue Water San Rafael recommend an aide who is working at Blue Water Elementary. She's been working there for a few months and has been working as a one-to-one aide with the student and his transitions through the day and his school day, and is just really the epitome of what social emotional learning and love is all about. It is my honor to present our SEL award, one of them, to Ms. Heidi Bohan. This is a traveling trophy that you get to keep for them.
Awesome, thank you.
You have to sign it.
Okay.
How long have you been there, right?
December.
Since December. Okay, well, thank you for coming and doing that work for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our second SEL recipient tonight, we amended the agenda to add her name. She was recommended by her principal and her school. We've heard a lot the last few months about the Roadrunner Pride Assemblies and the recognitions of students and the things that are happening at Mount Taylor and how our kids are being rewarded, our staff is being rewarded, and we're really working as a team to build up young people at that school. And Mrs. Valdez sent a nomination for her instructional coach and said that, you know, a lot of the work and everything that goes into that is coming from Mrs. Thayer. And so tonight it's my honor to recognize for her social emotional love, Miss Melinda Thayer. Caring about our people. Gonna take a picture of it?
Yes.
This one.
Took 3, so you could choose which one.
Our Edu champion for the month of February was recommended by her principal, but works in a special education capacity. And so I asked Mrs. Griego, I said, tell me about Mrs. Flores and what she's doing at her in her role. And so Mrs. Griego, will you give me some of the feedback about why she's an Edu champion?
So, Mrs. Flores is a phenomenal special education teacher. She brings social emotional learning and love to her students, to her practice, to everything she does every day. She is just wonderful. She collaborates with colleagues, general ed and special ed, and parents and administration, instruction of coaches. She is the whole package. So she is well worthy of this Edu champion belt.
And Chini, you go by Newberry, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so she's Flores Newberry, right?
Chini Newberry.
Chini Newberry, all right. So it is my honor, we have Newberry on the agenda. It is my honor to present our February Edu champion, Miss Chini Newberry. Ready?
Okay.
Okay. You're the champion. See, you have to do muscle pose.
Okay.
Would you like your family to come up?
Yes.
We're all family in Grand Cibola County School.
She is exceptional with Ms. Hernandez as well.
Do you wanna come?
I will send them. Ready? 1, 2. I took 3.
Congratulations. Madam President, board members, that completes our recognitions for tonight.
Excellent. Next, we have an action item. Normally, we don't do action items until, as you see, a little bit later, but we're trying to be a little more streamlined and efficient. And we would love to have the wonderful Ms. Brownfield from Los Alamitos come up and explain why she needs us to have this action item.
Streamlined and efficient, got it, on it. Good evening, Madam President, Superintendent Whitener, members of the board, district administrators. My name is Kayla Brownfield and I teach math at Los Alamitos. I'm also our National Junior Honor Society sponsor and I chaperone and organize our trips to New York City. For the last 3 years, we've done this. brought it back after COVID for that time. Our students who get to go on these trips have earned their invitation through their 7th grade year. They're invited based on grades, behavior, and teacher recommendations. And then during their 8th grade year, they do sign a contract to maintain those items. It is completely student funded. We don't do any sort of fundraising or school organized anything, group anything as far as actual funding of the trips goes. This year we are doing 2 trips. The first one is coming up in March 10th through the 14th, which is 5 days in New York City. Then we're switching it up a little bit this year. And there's the second trip in June that's 7 days with 2 days in Washington, DC and 5 days in New York City. After all of students have claimed their spots, then we've invited parent chaperones to go with them. The March trip includes 20, look, I don't want to tell you the wrong number. The March trip includes 23 students and 16 chaperones. And the June trip is 50 students and 33 chaperones this year. So that June trip is big. We're gonna see how it goes. We have 2 buses. We can do it. Wish me luck.
What were the dates for the June trip?
June 12th through the 18th.
Thank you, sorry about that.
No, I don't think I said it.
Thank you.
If you need chaperones,
Oh,
there's 6 of us up here.
Yes.
Right?
We always need our own trip.
You got kids, you can do it.
You only can take us in groups of 2 though.
So I need to add
Otherwise-
around? Okay.
Right, because we don't wanna have a rolling quorum, or
No.
quorum, a possible quorum. Superintendent Weiner, do you have a recommendation, sir?
I recommend that we allow the Los Alamitos students to go on their New York trip.
Thank you very much.
Excellent.
Trips.
Yes, trips, yes.
They keep me busy.
Is there a motion to approve the out-of-state travel for the Los Alamitos National Honor Society Junior Honor Society children?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second? All right. It has been moved by Dr. Archambault and seconded by Mr. Jaramillo to approve the Los Alamitos Middle School students be able to have out-of-state travel. Is there any discussion, board members? All right, Mrs. Sandoval, roll call vote, please.
Dr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo,
Be easy, 50
We
for
got
New
this.
York and DC, that's a
Yes.
lot.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, thank you.
That's a road trip.
No, these are the you fly to New York and you've got it, yes. It's excellent. All right, Mr. Wagner,
We are
presentations, sir.
We are going to have some presentations to be more conscientious of our students and staff. We have moved the students up first. And so it's a holiday, everybody. It's National FFA Week this week. And so if you remember last year, Mr. Gonzalez was here talking about National FFA Week and things that they do in observance of that. And so it is my honor to turn it over to Mr. Amador Gonzalez and his students to talk about National FFA Week.
Thank you, Madam President, Mr. Superintendent, members of the Board of Education. Like I said, my name is Amador Gonzalez. I am the agriculture teacher at Grants High School, as along with being the advisor of the Grants FFA chapter. This week is National FFA Week, which in a nutshell is essentially FFA's version of homecoming. It's a way for us to celebrate all that the FFA offers to students, to the community, while celebrating the agriculture industry in the process as well. So we did put together a quick little presentation, and in an effort to be as streamlined as possible, We will keep this to under 5 minutes. That sound like a plan, children? Okay, next slide, please. So just a little bit of information about Grants FFA. We were initially chartered in 2020, but we became an active program in 2023. I, along with Aaron Saraceno at Los Alamitos Middle School, are the advisors for the program. And for students to be an FFA member, because we moved to a new membership model, every student that is automatically enrolled in an agriculture class has been afforded FFA membership. So students that are enrolled in Intro to Ag Science at Grants High School, Science of Large Animals, Horticulture, and Ag Leadership are automatically FFA members, along with agricultural explorations at Los Alamitos Middle School. So currently we have 84 active FFA members, 30 are actively participating in the program. That is up from last year. We had about 75 students total, and we had about 20 that were actively participating, so our numbers are growing. But rather than hearing me drone on about the FFA and all the accomplishments we've had, I'm gonna turn it over to these guys because they're the true stars of the show.
Hi y'all, my name is Carissa Cook. So I'm gonna talk about our chapter officers. Rico Valencia is our president. He could not be here tonight, he was busy. I am your vice president, 2 years in a row now. Secretary, Maya. Hello. Treasurer, Sophia Larry. And then the rest of ours, reporter Clemente Garcia, he is at wrestling right now. He is going to state, so happy for him. Sentinel Jules, she's also not here, she's busy. Student advisor Jaden, she's also not here. And then on to our chapter. Ooh, I like this one. So last year, me and Clemente Garcia and Harry Lee, we went to the national convention in Indianapolis. It was a really great experience for us to go. We got a three-star national chapter. That means that we did the work, that we put in our time to get us there. For us being a first year was absolutely amazing. The bad thing about that is that we were blinded on the stage, could not see nothing. And then, chapter finalists. What did we say?
For State Superior Chapter.
Yeah, State Superior Chapter finalist. I don't really know what to say about that, but I'm really glad that we did it in under a year. And then, State Landscape, they got 5th place at
State last year.
State. Yeah, sorry y'all. They got 5th place, they worked really hard, and this year we're gonna try to go for more. Some of our teams already made it, but let's hope we get more. Thank you.
Vanessa, are you on the landscape design team?
Oh no, I do livestock.
You do livestock,
I do my animals.
and that's your career development event, right?
Yes.
Hello, my name is Monica Reese, and this is my first year with FFA ever, so I just want to tell you some of our student accomplishments. For 2024 National FFA, Harry Lee placed 3rd place in agri-science for Plant System Division 1. In 2025, in New Mexico FFA, I placed a runner-up for Spanish Creek speaking.
That is so amazing.
Thank you.
That is so amazing.
Tell
Congratulations.
them what that earned you.
That earned me to go to nationals, so that is very exciting.
That is
Excited for
amazing.
me.
It's wonderful.
So some of our qualifications for state competitions so far, we're hoping for more. For state CDEs, we have entomology, floriculture, horse, landscape design. And for state convention, for Greenham Creed, me. For Greenham speech, Jesus Najera, sorry. For chapter speech, Rico Valencia, our president, and Greenham quiz team is also going.
Monica, did you answer the questions in Spanish?
Yes, it was all in Spanish.
That's amazing.
Right?
Well, thank you, board members, for being here and, well, being here, I guess. My name is Jesus Najera. I'm from Grants FFA. This is my first year doing it. Today we will talk about monthly chapter meetings. We have them each month. members of the FFA get like, what is it, month of,
The member.
the member of the month, they get goodies. What else?
Which we have for them as
Well, which they have. We also attend National FFA Convention down in Indianapolis. That's also Gonzalez. Did we tell them about the? All right. No, okay. Also, members, some of our members go to the Roundhouse down in Santa Fe. Each member, I think, gets picked by the state officers. Am I right? No, for
I
the,
don't know what you're talking about.
no, for the Roundhouse. No. Well, they get picked randomly. I don't know. Okay.
You're doing great.
Okay.
You're fine.
We also attend New Mexico FFA Leadership Conference down in Albuquerque. It is February, 7th through the 8th. We spend a couple of days learning about how leadership, seeing what can we do as well. There's also scholarships that students can apply. As seniors, they could apply for scholarships that could get paid for their college. We have ag literacy presentations with the elementary schools. We go to each elementary school down in the district, present many things that agriculture for the little kids, as well as we have partnership with local programs by county board, Grants Milan Street, and etc. Next on the list is classroom activities. We have in the classroom, we have a hydraulic system for
Hydroponics. Hydroponics.
hydroponics, sorry, system, which we have in the classroom to plant things. We also have a flower cooler for the floriculture, right? Floriculture, sorry. We also have animal science lab, which we still, what can I say about that?
Just do labs and class.
So that's, all right. We also have an outdoor garden bed, which we use to plant many foods, right?
Yes.
All right. We have a large outdoor planters, sorry. I think that's, I don't know. That's it. Thank you.
And Suze, what was your speech about that you?
My speech that I was doing is history and dangers of combines, if I'm correct.
Yes.
I haven't done it enough. I haven't memorized the whole entire speech yet, but I have placed second place at districts and I qualified for state.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sophia Larry. I'm part of Grants FFA, and this is my second year of being a part of this program. And I'm here to talk to you guys about our plans of growing more. So we have applications for grant opportunities, and I believe one of them was for a meat dehydrator.
And we got the cooler last year.
And we also got our flower cooler with these grants, and it helps us expand as a classroom and learn more. And we plan on recruiting and marketing at both GHS and Los Alamitos Middle School, where we want to recruit more members so our chapter can grow and become a bigger chapter. And we also have partnerships with agriculture organizations.
Tribal Ag Fellowship. The Tribal Ag
The Tribal Agriculture Washington Leadership Scholarship. And we also have more opportunities to serve the grants communities, such as today we went down to the nursing home and we had passed out cards. And the previous day, we went to the dog shelter, we volunteered.
What's your favorite part of being in FFA?
My favorite part, I would say, is CDEs, because I really like floriculture.
You were doing some of that flower design when I was in your classroom.
Yeah.
We got Valentine's last week.
Oh, hi everyone. As some of you know, my name is Maya Dalgarito, and this is my third year in FFA, and I'm the secretary. I'm gonna talk about our upcoming events. Our most upcoming event is TRC CDEs. That's where we compete for our competitions. And then we have Wingate Ag Career on March 5th, Roswell CDE on March 15th, State CDE in Las Cruces in April, donkey basketball at the Grants High School on April 9th, and then our chapter banquet on May 3rd. And then we have state convention, FFA state convention in Las Cruces in May, in 30th.
Maya wants donkey basketball.
And so, Mr. Weiner, you gotta come, you gotta go there,
I gotta
okay?
be there.
You gotta be there. And so basically, we're gonna have donkeys there in the old gym, and we're gonna have adults ride the donkeys while they play basketball. And the most fun part is that you're gonna see me dressed up as a rodeo clown.
Mr. Jaramillo will wanna be there. He's a good basketball player.
You're gonna be driven a basketball on a donkey like this.
Yeah.
Shoot.
A regular basketball?
Yeah.
So, as you can see, there are a lot of exciting things going on with FFA. I was thinking about it as these guys were presenting. There's a lot that I actually left off of that list just because there's so many moving parts with this program. But none of it would be possible without the support of every single person here, without these guys putting in the work. These guys are the true rock stars of the program. This is the group that we took to the New Mexico Leadership Conference a few weeks ago. So really excited about the growth of our program. But as a way to show you guys thank you for your support for our program, we actually brought some goodies for you guys.
Thank you.
No. Get out of here. Who do you think you are?
You ain't spent I know you're gonna do it ever. I'm like his granddaughter, so get out of here. I'm like his granddaughter, so.
So which ones were at the set?
All of us plus.
You don't have to do it.
Oh, so there was one.
So it was all of us.
At state convention.
Look, wait. I'm trying to show him the picture.
Well, I just, cause there, how many
So
was it?
it was not before, so the three boys not next to that one, he wasn't there. It was from me this way, and then except the three on the outside.
Okay, one preventive.
Yeah, Nick,
Vessel.
yeah, Nick was there, so he was there with us.
Thank you.
Could we have all of you come up here and let Mr. Gonzalez get a picture of you? If you'll come stand right here facing Mr. Gonzalez. Come on, stand right here. Board members, if you'll come so we could let Mr. Gonzalez get a picture of us. Here we go.
There you go.
The things I have to do to make these kids look good. Seriously, I don't want to. I have to buy compliments for these guys all the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. We appreciate your presentation.
Are you still working? You're too busy.
Yeah, I know. Obviously.
Bye-bye, sweetheart. Oh my gosh, it was just absolutely our pleasure. Thank you, sweetheart. All right, Mr. Widener.
So, at this time, I have asked Ms. Salazar to come forward and present our second read of the Black Education Act. Schools around the state of New Mexico are adopting the policy regarding the Black Education Act. And so for our second read tonight, Ms. Lisa Salazar.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Superintendent, directors, and a few guests. So this is the second read for our New Mexico, our Black School Act, NMSA 1978 22-5-4.3. And so there are 10 policies that are affected.
that are affected by the Black School Act. 6 of them already contain the necessary information regarding the verbiage and information included. But there were 4 policies that you had in your packet that needed to include the information required by the Act. And the 4 policies that needed updating or information added will be your J 4700 JKB detention of students, J 5350 JLCD administering medicine to students, J 2300 JIC student conduct, and J 2350 JICA student dress. And so those are the 4 policies that needed to include the information. Any questions?
Board members, any questions? Thank you very much, Ms. Salazar,
Thank
for
you.
that presentation.
Thank you.
Mr. Wagner.
So, brief presentation, very quickly. Board members, as you know, we struggle with our system, our heating and cooling system at Grants High School. We started the semester off with our students asynchronous and not able to be in classrooms that were too cold. Conti, our service provider, has provided us with an opportunity to purchase the cooling tower that we are currently leasing. We pay a monthly fee of
$17,000.
$17,000 a month and we have for the last year leased this cooling tower. And so at this time, they have offered to let us purchase the cooling tower for $113,000, I believe.
113, 667, 22.
Yes, and so that is a fraction of what a new cooling tower costs. Granted, this one has been used by us for the last year. We are working with PSFA. They are going to help us replace the systems, and we will bring in engineers, and we will be looking at a closed loop system so we don't have the bad water wearing on the system. And we are going to move in that direction. It is going to take time to figure out how to engineer new units and in every classroom at Grants High School. And so my recommendation in a while will be that we purchase this cooling tower for now to get us through the next year to year and a half while we are updating the systems at Grants High School.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wagner.
Yes, ma'am.
Any questions, board members?
I have one. What kind of maintenance will we have on that unit as we go?
In the time since I've been here, which is 7 years now, 8 years, as a board, you guys have bought at least 4 cooling towers at a price of about $300,000 to $400,000. And so you as a board have spent a lot of money on. Grants High School has 2 cooling towers. If we do a closed loop system, what it means is it'll be like distilled water running through our units, and it won't be piped in from a tower.
Also, it just stays in.
Correct, it just stays in the heater and it recirculates.
Wouldn't it refrigerate and heat at the same time? Wouldn't something like that work? Or is that costly?
Yes, and in the library at Grants High School and in the shops back here, they have mini split units that, because there's not an upstairs there, they're engineered with mini split units, and those are refrigerated units, and they work great. So when you go in the library, their temperature's always nice in the library. We've talked to engineers about possibly looking, we don't wanna mess up the aesthetics at Grants High School, cause it's a beautiful building. We don't wanna, but we'd have to have mini splits on the second floor as well, so we are exploring all options. Yeah, and it's gonna take us a while to get an engineering plan. Now PSFA has allowed us to, we have access to our funds and they're gonna help us with those systems. It's just we need to get engineers in.
So,
Yes, sir.
President. So there's a plan.
There is a plan.
Where's
Yes,
the plan?
We just got access to the funds last month. And so our plan is to keep this system working for now. In a moment, I'll be talking about purchasing portable units. And kind of this will be the last big expenditures that we'll have on the GHS system. And then we're gonna bring the engineers in this spring and be ready to figure out how to get those units installed and put in.
Well, I think we've all been at Grants High,
Yes.
and so we know how they feel about it. We know how you felt about it. So we gotta resolve this.
Definitely.
And so there needs to be a written plan. We need to have all of our ducks in a row written down in terms of what the needs are, what the priorities are, and phasing in whatever it is that we need to do. And then and be transparent about that with the staff so that they know there's actually a solution, a complex solution. Maybe be in phases, sounds like. And we'll just need to see how this plays out. I know what they don't want to see is May as being hot again in April, and then it gets into September.
So maybe
In about a couple of months or 2 months, a month or two.
junction with
Maybe I
what
should
this
jump
is,
into my,
you could explain timeline of everything, because this presentation that you're doing right now is gonna tie into purchasing the cooling tower that is already in place, but that we have been renting.
correct,
And so this, in essence, to be able to get it at the price you listed, will help carry us through until
the remodel.
more is able to happen. But I think what Dr. Archambault is indicating is that it would be beneficial for not just the board, but Grants, Cibola County Schools in general to know what this process is gonna be going forward. Well, and stakeholders and students that are gonna be impacted by these decisions.
Correct. Presentation D is along the same lines. Right now, we want to keep the school comfortable at all times. Dr. Archambault mentioned that in May, we don't want the classrooms to be too hot, and we struggle with that. We know at Grants High School that their air conditioning units don't always work and their heating units don't always work. And so our finance committee met, the board finance committee met last week, and as we try to get through the next year and a half of a remodel of an update of these units and systems, we would like to purchase portable heating and air units. At this time, we have about 12 of them at Grants High School. We would like to have one for every classroom. So that way the kids are there. They're not out of class, they're not missing class, they're comfortable, they're not passing out and needing drinking water because it's too hot. And so the portable units range between $4,000 and $5,000 for their industrial units, and they're very good units. And so we would like to purchase to have enough for every classroom at GHS. I don't have a price quote on that yet. Mr. Jones was trying to help me get that before the meeting and we don't have a good price quote as of yet. And so I would like to bring that back to a future agenda once we have the price quote. But we definitely want to keep their rooms comfortable so they can have school and be able to have classes until we can get their systems up.
Thank you. Board members, any other questions regarding the cooling tower? Were you gonna have Mr. Jones add anything at this time for D? Cause he's listed on there.
I'd be happy to.
Like, Mr.
I stole his
Weiner?
thunder. Mr. Jones, you're welcome to add.
So, Madam President, members of the board, from a financial standpoint, having a surplus of these heating and cooling units is advantageous to the district because hopefully 18 months to 2 years from now, Grants High School no longer requires those individual units. So Grants High School being our largest population of students, they'll have the most AC units, heating units. And then if we had another event where we had another system go down, it's as easy as loading those units into a trailer and getting them there so that we don't have to miss any days of school ever again. It's just gonna take some work on facilities and making sure that we have that inventoried and that those are taken care of. So that's where, that was my recommendation, was that we do the cooling tower to get us through this design phase and this build out phase, but that we also have these individual units that could potentially last a decade for the school district. So if there is an issue at Los Alamitos, knock on wood, we can just deploy those units while they are fixing that system so that we don't miss days of school, because we need kids in classrooms that are comfortable.
And it does heating and.
Correct.
And they're impressive. It's kind of a dream. The heating will let you set it to 99 degrees Fahrenheit and it will blow that hot. And it'll let you set it to 50 degrees Fahrenheit and it'll blow that cold. They're definitely worth the money and they're really nice. They usually either vent out a window or into the ceiling. So it's a good system as far as just patchwork.
I wish I had one of them when I was at Grants High School.
Board members,
It's
any
always been an
questions?
Heating cleaning has always been an issue.
Oh, yeah, we've been dealing with
My
that for a
first
long time.
December, the cooling tower on the south side went up. And I was a year-round employee then, right? And so I had to work over the holiday break and there was one day I was, at the time, Mr. Autry was the interim. So, and I was sitting there in my office and I could see my breath. And so I called Mr. Autry and I said, you know, I'm just gonna go work from home because I'm sitting in here by myself and I can see my breath.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, like I said, you know, it's ongoing, let's see if we can just buy it back. Hopefully, you know, like I said, if it's been ongoing, we might not even fix that.
All right, anything else, board members, on this one? Mr. Weiner?
At this time, I have asked Mr. Jones to come and present again on our RFP. We have also invited him to come to our executive session. But Mr. Jones, would you like to share with us information on the RFP?
Absolutely. Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Widener, the most recent draft, which I sent last week, is 98% of the way there. In my time today, I found a few typos that I have made that I'm going through to correct. The tentative dates that I have is that we publish this on February 24th, which means that they will be due March 24th. It's 28 days, but because February is a short month, it happens to be the same. And all of that timeline is in this RFP as well. I have updated it so that it has the tentative schedule so that we can move forward on that. Kind of to prevent repeating myself, I will stand for questions, but I'm also looking forward to meeting with you all to discuss this in executive session as well.
Board members, do you have anything for Mr. Jones right now?
Yes. We're on page 4,
I'm there.
the paragraph that says after.
Okay.
Then, page 7. The scope of services. A. And circle the last, it starts with, it is GCCS's intention to award one contract, okay? So I'm trying to tie those two together. First of all, in the first one that I mentioned, the one that starts with the word after, it says that the award of a contract for professional services may be made based upon the criteria which does not include price. Multiple awards are anticipated. How do you explain multiple awards? What is that? Elaborate on that.
Multiple awards would be, there are 2 responses to the RFP that are equal in value. And the recommendation from the evaluation committee is that we present 2 suitors to the board to vote so that you could have 2 separate firms working for you. There would be multiple awards given for the same service.
For the same service.
For the same services as described in the scope of services. You may find, based on the evaluation criteria, that there is a firm that is more suited to work in special education law. So you would default to them if you had an issue with special education law, whereas there might be somebody that is more versed or has better personnel in terms of working with employment law, and you would defer to them if that was the case. What that does is that allows us to grant more than one person an agreement with this RFP, which will allow you to exceed the $60,000 mark.
Who
And
makes that decision?
the evaluation committee makes that decision. The process goes as follows. An RFP is published. After the RFP is open for 28 days, an evaluation committee makes a recommendation to me. As the author of the RFP, I do not sit on the evaluation committee because there is a potential conflict of interest because I am the author of this document. So to protect myself from a conflict of interest and the appearance of potentially stacking this for one suitor, I've removed myself. The evaluation committee will then make a recommendation to me, and in turn, as the chief procurement officer, I will make a recommendation or recommendations to the Board of Education. And then you all will vote and basically say yes or no. And if the answer is no, we reinvent the wheel.
May I ask for clarification, Dr. Guy? I don't want to step on what you were just saying. I think that where you're saying multiple awards are anticipated for the same services, what you've just said actually contradicts that.
Yes.
Because you're saying that we could possibly have multiple awards, but we may as a board look at all of these different firms, so to speak, and say, we really like this one because they're gonna help us with, as you said, special ed. But then we also really like this one because we anticipate they would be better for board services. And then, you know, there may even be a third firm for financial or, you know, HR or
HR.
whatever those things may be.
Sure.
Because then in your scope of services, you are saying, and this is where part of that contradiction comes in under A, that it is Grant Cibola County Schools' intention to award one contract. However, you're saying that we could have multiple awards. So I think Dr. Guy was pointing out that we need to have a little bit of clarification in that in order to best have the committee be able to present to you what those options are for the possibility of multiple awards.
And I'm happy to update the RFP to reflect that in both locations. I understand that it is contradictory to say multiple awards will be given, however, we intend to award it to one.
Maybe instead of saying one contract, we could say a contract.
Correct.
Well,
It's still,
work on it. The other aspect of this is I'm extremely uncomfortable with this committee feeling that it can make a decision about multiple awards independent of board's decision, because if we don't like what is done, then we just say no.
correct.
Then you go back out. So
Correct.
there's a good likelihood that when you present when Mr. Wyden presents a recommendation, does it provide us flexibility, which is what we want. Flexibility with respect to selecting a firms who have specific areas of expertise. And will your recommendations outline that flexibility by saying we shall award multiple contracts, one to represent the board and its, one to represent HR, one to represent student issues, one to represent whatever, we have several of them. And will you make those recommendations to us specifically, to those firms? Because if you're saying you're going to award without us, you can't really, let's see, what does the language say here? It's our intention to award one contract. That means basically it's the board that will award one, that makes the decision to award one contract.
Correct. Based off of the recommendation of the evaluation
Okay.
committee.
Mr. Weiner will make the recommendation. And I would suggest that you explore that flexibility portion of it, and how are you going to, as you review the proposals, and start to rate them, rank them, and assess the qualities or the experience of the firms, whether you're going to begin to realize that the board is probably preferring flexibility so that it can be assured that the firm that is going to work in some unique area is truly going to be capable of doing so without any difficulty. So when we actually come to the point of it, what are you going to recommend? And if we're not satisfied with your recommendation, then we say no, simply because we didn't really provide that flexibility in the original proposal. I'd hate to have to go back out again and do that. I'd rather you work on the flexibility aspect of it and see how that can be, how the language can be modified to include that.
Mr. Jones.
Yes, sir.
Can a board member be on that committee?
No.
Legally, they cannot be.
I don't think so.
They cannot. Additionally, you cannot make a recommendation. It has to come from me,
Okay, well, whoever it comes from,
Because you're a procurement.
because I am
whoever
a
it
state
comes
purchasing
from,
agent.
will still face the same thing, is if you do make the presentation
Sure.
and you say, we will award it to one firm, more than likely, it's going, it would be looked on, with some degree of scrutiny.
Well,
as to why
but
we
I
do that.
think he's saying that he can make several recommendations.
That's what,
And so
suggesting.
then, right, but I think that was the
Yeah.
contrary to the one little sentence that said award one, you would make whatever the recommendations that the committee says, and you would present those recommendations, therefore allowing the board at that time to review what those recommendations are. Cause it could be multiple, if you had, and just an example, if you had 3 firms that tied with, their scoring, say, then you would present all of those to the board, saying we had 3 firms
That were all
and
really
this
strong.
is their scoring, these were their strengths, as seen by the committee, correct?
Correct.
And then the board would be able to discuss and determine if the board would want to, award one and say, yes, for board, these 2 other firms have these other strengths and we would like to award that. Is that, I'm just trying to paraphrase
Yeah,
here
so
so we can be
And so the board.
on the
would
same
award
page.
Contracts.
The beauty of the RFP and the rubric that we've created and the evaluation committee is that we are able to quantify skill. So it removes any of the emotion or any conflict out of it. We'll score them and the person with the highest score will be the recommendation. If we have 3 firms that are all really close in their offerings and what they can provide, there will be multiple recommendations given. I will ensure that the language in our RFP reflects that. So that there can be multiple awards in the event that there are multiple proposals that are equal in score.
Thank you.
So it underscores the importance of the RFP because the RFP is what we are grading on and the rubric that is there. And as long as that is solid, then we can trust the result of whatever the recommendation is.
Thank you.
The other aspect of it is, has to do with the transparency of the evaluation. The transparency of the evaluation, I mean, to what extent are we going to be privy to all the scoring and the ratings that were generated to arrive at your recommendations? I think that more than likely, the firms that are participating will want to see the scoring to see how they did. We need to examine that, what is going to be available to them when they submit, and they know that there's going to be an evaluation process. And if they are able to have a we could make a request to see how their scores, how they scored. Likewise, the board should be able to see how all of this was scored, so you can see what the strengths and weaknesses there were. That is the basis for your recommendation or recommendations to the board. Give that some thought, see how you can work that into the discussion about how the procedure is going to work and the degree to which it's going to be transparent so we can be assured. This is not the business of trust, this is the business of verification. It's going to be a very important decision, and we need to ensure that we all are on the same wavelength when it comes to how clear and transparent we are about this process.
I agree.
Other than that, we just do it one more time.
we're closer than we've
Understood,
been.
we are making progress and
Yeah,
That's-
we're working it actually out
yes,
in
I-
session.
yeah. Anything further, board members, on that? I'm gonna close us off for this particular section of this by asking Mr. Jones, will you be certain in that last section that Dr. Archambault was talking about? I don't know if it is common practice for scores to be shared. I don't know what that is, so I would hesitate to be agreeable about, what the scoring is for the people doing the RFP. I would appreciate you very much finding that information out for us so that there's not anything that we as a board and district would do or share that would jeopardize the validity of our RFP.
I will.
Thank you.
Make Ron and, we've been here for some time, we've gone through different RFPs. And when I first came on, there was a large proposal that we were to fund. And so the applicants submitted their proposals, were screening by an evaluation process, with the committee. And then the presentation included the scoring and how they ranked in the scores.
Sure.
So that's what I'm saying is that
Understood.
there is I think on their part, the persons who are making the offers will want to know. And then if we're not basing it upon price, what else are we basing it on?
I agree
And so,
wholeheartedly.
Explore that.
We just need
We're just
to make
asking
sure
for-
that we're not sharing anything that we shouldn't share. That was the clarification.
But at the same time, be transparent.
Yeah.
Absolutely, 100%.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Mr. Jones.
So-
Mr. Widener, it's all you, sir.
Superintendent's report is a little scattered. I have a lot of different presentations, but important stuff that I want to bring you up to speed on. I'll start with the Mesa View Elementary construction progress. If you've driven by Mesa View Elementary, we have a beautiful structure there starting to take shape. If you notice, there is kind of a skeleton crew there working on it right now. We have run into an issue with our design firm versus our contractors. Our design called for beams being, steel beams, being, and Cooper, correct me if I'm wrong, being built with 14 gauge metal. Our contractors started building these beams and putting these beams in with 14 gauge metal. And we have discovered that for the roof structure and best holding up the roof structure, we need 10 gauge metal. And so there's some posturing going on between the design firm and our contractors, and so we're waiting for that to shake out. And so this is definitely putting a hurt on our timeline, and PSFA is pushing for us to resume construction and resume everything that we want to have going. So that's kind of the gist of what's going on right now. I wanted to let you guys know as a board and let the community know that we are pushing the timeline now. And we are not going to have the school done as quickly as we would like. It's kind of a political thing that involves the design firm, the contractors, and the PSFA, and we're kind of in the middle, and it will work out, and we will work out the construction, but at this time, there is not a lot of progress being made. Is that correct, Mr. Jones? Is that the best way to summarize that and make that public?
There is, and the biggest issue is with our design team and their third-party structural engineer that failed to detail some of the wind-bearing and roof-bearing plans. So the good thing is one, PSFA is totally on our side, which is always good. And two, they are making progress into getting those details and getting those details ironed out. Because the last thing that we will do is put up a structure that is dangerous or that's not sound.
Not gonna hold the roof.
So it's unfortunate that we're in the situation that we're in, but it is a better game to wait and see and let it play out, even if that means that we have somebody re-engineer that portion of the roof up to
Our standards.
Even stronger roofs. So that's what's going on with Mesa View. Let me look here and make sure I'm covering everything. Okay, legislative updates. And I apologize that some of these things didn't make it until after the conference last week. Last week, there were four of you and myself that attended the New Mexico School Boards Association annual conference and the legislative work. The second part in your book is the current legislative education bills that are being discussed. It includes everything from raises for employees to the desk time versus 180 days. That has been kicked out, and so now they're talking about that. They're talking about goodness, what else? They're talking about federal policies and the things that are going on with federal. We're talking about graduation requirements and changes. Algebra 2 has gone away as a graduation requirement. New Mexico history has gone away as a graduation requirement. And so that second part right there is the current list of legislative education bills that are being discussed, and there are some there that, as you are members of the New Mexico School Board Association, there are some of those bills that they do oppose, and that's the last page. And so I wanted you to know, to have that, if you, Mr. Jaramillo, if you're talking to legislators, or you can let them know that some of these you're passionate about, or some of them you're not, and so that's the current list of bills that are going around, and so
Cell phone use was
one of them is cell phone, and it's interesting because I was sitting by one of my board members, and I said, I'm not sure how I feel about that. You know, is a cell phone a tool? Is it a research tool? Can I get on Google and is it a tool that I could use in my class, or is it a distraction? Or and so there's talk about those locking packets where the kids lock up their cell phones during the day, and so I'm not sure how I feel about that one.
That was kicked around.
And the state school board.
Yeah.
It was talking about that.
They're talking about going away from a public education department and going back to a state superintendent of education and a state school board of education, with some of the members being appointed by the governor and some of the members of the state school board being elected. And so, so lots of interesting conversations and things happening in Santa Fe.
The regalia for the, they could use
Oh,
some
the
of
dress,
their dress,
Yeah.
the dress codes for the Native
graduation.
Americans.
Students can wear their traditional garments for graduation, and there was a situation last spring where a student was asked to remove her regalia from at her graduation, and so we don't wanna do that, and so so very interesting, lots of interesting political stuff going on. Those of us that were there tried to meet with a couple of our legislators and didn't make it happen, but we did meet with some of the legislators that are coming up with these bills, and they came and spoke to us at the legislative breakfast. So, just so you know what's going on in Santa Fe, I did get with Mr. Jones. You got these in order, Ms. Sandoval. Oh, no. That was the next part in your book. Is sharing, that's where the legislators are putting money. And so as the budget is shaking out, the state budget, you'll see kind of where they're putting their funds. And so I wanted you to have that, and that way you'll kind of know which bills are gonna become a reality. And speaking of budgets, I asked Mr. Jones, being that he's brand new to the Director of Business and Finance, I asked him to start planning out his budget for next year, our budget for next year. And we definitely know some areas where we need to increase. If legislation passes that we have to give raises to our employees, then that's gonna be, and so we've always talked about it, like we've always likened it to buckets, right? And so Mr. Jones has to start working on his buckets of where we're gonna allocate funds and where we need to put funds. And so I've asked him to give us a timeline of how we're going into the budget. I've also asked him to let's tighten up our belts, and let's only take the important players that need to be at the spring budget workshop. And so if you look on the next page there, you see February through March, our finance committee is meeting. We are meeting with principals and directors to address staffing needs. We're working on the PED budget forms, and there's a lot of reporting that's going on right now, because as our legislators want us to have funds, PED needs to know how we're doing some budgeting and progress that we're making. PSFA needs to know how we're spending money. And so in April, they will have the spring budget workshop, and as you guys know from my email, I want to invite you to go to that. I think it's important that you be part of the budget process, and so there will be the spring budget workshop the 9th through the 11th of April, and at that time we will come back and we have 2 weeks, Mr. Jones?
So just really quick, I called our budget analyst at NNPED because the timeline is really close. So New Mexico state law says that tax day, April 15th, is when all budgets must be approved. Well, that never is the case. It is almost always, if not always, amended to reflect an extension to that. Where we are getting our unit price numbers April 9th, it is highly unlikely, nearing impossible, that our budget will be due on April 15th. But I wanted to put it here just as a placeholder, because as of today, that is the truth. That's what it'll be, so.
And then it goes to our budget analyst, and they approve of our budget.
Correct.
As we go into May, that's ideally how it should work. And then we need to involve stakeholders, we need to have the bucket presentations of this is where our funds are going, this is where we're using the money that we get from impact aid, this is where we're using the money that we get from PSFA, and so, so in May is when we'll start doing the promotions about the budget, and you guys have to approve the budget in May. And so, and of course, that will be a board-approved budget, and that's the ideal goal there. We want our budget analysts and PED to approve of our budget, but then the board has to approve of it. And so, that's kind of the budget timeline. And if you're interested in going to the spring budget workshop, let Mr. Jones know. And Ms. Sandoval, and we'll make plans for you to be at that.
I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
You know, you mentioned salaries, did they also talk about minimum wage moving up?
They have.
So I know that's gonna be a factor.
And it's going up substantially.
Yes. I heard 17.
Possibly $17 an hour, and then it's possible that for our teachers, our custodians, our contracted individuals, they're talking about a 3 to 6% increase, which is substantial, and then they're talking about the state minimums are 50 for teachers are 50,000, 60,000, and 70,000. They're talking about increasing those levels as well. So it'll make for an interesting salary schedule and how we pay our teachers' experience and their education, and so it's gonna be a fine dance, Mr. Jones. You're gonna learn how to build budgets.
I'm a great dancer.
It'll be great.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Wagner, one of the things I said that was important for us to, as a board, to become educated on is the actual budget. Relying on the budget, what I would want us to do is to have the complete budget so we can look at it. And what I think we need to do is to have a comparison, a 2 or 3 year comparison, so we can see what direction we're going with respect to staffing. And as we have attended the workshop on budgeting, it's important for us to know those things. And so that we need to do. I would suggest we do that the next board meeting, so you can just have the time to just feel just able to take a look at it and say, this is what it looks like for each one of the funds and functions that we have. The other thing is that the budget needs to reflect, as the policy says and the state says, your plans. What plans do you have for the education of your children? And how will you allocate the resources, align your budget with the strategic plan that you have, or any goals or priorities? Does the board have any priorities? And we need to explore those things, So I think we need to do that fairly quickly. As you were saying, is that time is flying. It's February, March, April, and May, and the state has those specific timeframes for certain things to be done. And this is a long session, which means that we may have less time to really get our budget together and presentable. And what I hope that we do is not what we did last year, which was to actually not really have the board see the whole budget. We need to see the whole budget so we know where are we putting monies in for salaries, for programs, for the board, for administration, and all that. You were just talking about how we're possibly short on some line item accounts. Well, that's where the finance committee comes into play. They're supposed to be the ones, you guys are supposed to be the ones to ensure that you are monitoring that. The policy says there has to be a monthly status report, and so there may be some others. There's just a variety of things that have to be done, and we're getting to that point where we have to compress everything into a shorter period of time. So how are we going to, and how do you propose to have us align our budget with the strategic plan is something that we'll want to explore. Thank you.
Dr. Archambault, that was great feedback. and Mr. Jones and I have been talking about, we want you guys to have access to the entire budget. It's big, it's bigger than the yellow pages and so we've talked about maybe giving you guys PDFs, so you have the current budget that we're using, and it's a lot. And so Mr. Jones and I are working on that, Dr. Archambault, and we want you to have it.
If the policy says that we need an update on the status of the budget regularly, that's a different question. That has to do with what are the balances? What are the encumbrances so far? And after you account for the encumbrances, what do you have remaining? That is important for us to know, so that we don't get caught flat-footed.
Correct, exactly.
Thank you.
All right, I'll wrap up one comment on this one, following along, because Guy and Walter and I were in that veteran board training, and it was all about budgeting. One of the things that they indicated that's really, really important is for boards to know where the money is as far as percentages go, so that we know what percentage of our budget is going toward actual students in the classroom and their education. Because they say oftentimes districts can get in the weeds by having, too many administrators or too many auxiliary staff. And so I would ask as well, in reviewing all of this, that we have, perhaps a very rudimentary accounting of a breakdown of where all of the percentages of spending go. Like Walter was saying, what is going toward the health services that are provided, and insurance, those kinds of things, educational support, staff, and transportation. I think and we saw that, I think, last year in, the big oblong spreadsheets that we got. But I think if you wouldn't mind also adding just, those percentages on there, that would help us as the board know where our funding is going in the most simple of terms. And then obviously we would be able to extrapolate out, what is in those.
And like I said, as far as priority to kids, we do see that money going to the kids.
Mostly,
To the classroom.
yeah.
Well, and President Lee, Mr. Jaramillo, you were in a meeting with me the other day where they said great schools commit their budget to the classrooms.
Yeah.
And that's the conversation we need to have, because our money needs to go to kids and the education of the kids. And so we need to have those conversations about putting that money into our kids.
And I'll comment, I'm happy to provide anything and everything in whatever detail you require. It's just a time thing. If I was to print our budget from this year, it is quite literally hundreds of pages of line items. So if there is a medium that you would prefer in those presentations, I'm open to hearing those requests. Because PED wants it a certain way, and I'll give it to PED the way that they want it, but if you want it a different way, I'm happy to do that as well.
We can work with the finance committee and come up with a good plan for how to promote.
And share with
And
the
pretty
board.
much most of the budget's already dedicated, it's already, like, it's salaries, it's already.
That's where most of your budget goes,
That's
salary.
the big chunk of our budget.
Yeah, the way the state wants it is not, it's not user-friendly for the board. And so, I had given you a sample of what had been provided, and I'll share that back with you again. You can actually say, let's do it in phases, where you only look at say, the schools and how you expend funds there. all the salaries, all the fringe benefits, the supplies, materials from the GO side, and then compare that, so we'd be able to see what you're gonna be doing this, soon as the principals are gonna start to project staffing needs, and you're gonna say, you're gonna ask them, what's your enrollment? What's the projected enrollment? So a lot of this is gonna be forecasting on the part of the administration. Is what do you forecast? What do the schools forecast? And so you can collapse that into the budget that you're going to create. Many years ago, I had asked a certain person in the business office, this is a long time ago, and one of the things that there's a tendency to do is just roll over everything, because it's so big. In other words, you got teachers in there who we expect to continue on, so that means the salaries that we are allocating for that school will be modified based upon whatever the state legislature says we're gonna do. And then the principals will be shifting staffing around, depending on the enrollment. And the little schools may have to combine grades, and so those are the other things. So the enrollment projections are pretty serious thing. Thank you.
Mr. Wagner, thank you.
So Friday, I was at the conference and I went to a session on the new regulations in dealing with ICE and what to do if ICE comes to your school. I took pictures, and I apologize because they're not very clear, and I shared that with you, board members. I took pictures of the presentation. So we had a presidential change in January. On January 22nd, or on January 22nd, there was some new rules coming out about ICE and the deportation of non-citizens. And so there's a lot of fear in the country, in New Mexico, about what to do if ICE shows up at your school. And so the state is trying to provide guidance on what to do if ICE comes to your school. The bottom line from the presentation, we need a ICE response plan. That falls under Mrs. Jones's department, and so Mrs. Jones and Mr. Valdo and Ms. Garcia will work on an ICE response plan. You are not to allow access to your school. You can.
I think we can advance.
Yeah, you can, Dr. Martin, you can move through. Students are protected when they are at school. We do not allow ICE officials to enter a school without a proper documentation signed by a judge. And so we will refer, if ICE agents show up at Blue Water Elementary, the thought there is that Principal Gaines will refer them to central office and to Mrs. Jones, and we will make sure that we have legal documentation to allow any access. As you know, under FERPA, we are not allowed to share information. And so anybody, and this is our district employees, our principals, our teachers, our aides, we are not allowed to share about a student's status. And there are cases of people already in the country being sued because they have shared FERPA data and violated FERPA laws. And so you could be fired, you could be sued if you violate FERPA. And so Mrs. Jones and I were talking Friday night about what we need to do as our ICE response plan. You see in the second documentation of your book, that is the guidance that came from the Department of Justice and the Secretary of Education in New Mexico. And so we will be, Mrs. Jones will have our ICE response plan together, and we will make sure that we are training our employees, our schools, and all of our employees go through a FERPA training in the vector modules. And so they have all signed that they will not violate FERPA. And so, but we just need to make sure that they know if you call and say, you know, there's these non-citizen students in my school, you could be sued. And it would not be good. That would be a violation of FERPA. So so I wanted to let you know kind of what I learned from that workshop. It's interesting times and interesting navigating the changes. And so so Mrs. Jones is going to work on that, and we'll bring that to the board. It'll be a presentation. It's not an action item. It's just how we would respond if I showed up at one of our schools. They'd said that there were no confirmed cases of ICE showing up at a school. That there's been talk about it. There's been social media talk about it, but that there weren't any confirmed cases of ICE going in and showing up with a warrant at a school. And so, yeah, Mrs. Lee, you were in there. Is there anything I haven't mentioned or covered?
I don't think so. I think well, to touch on lightly, one of the things that they did say over and over again was that, you know, there are clear steps that each school site should take should these agents show up at the schools, and that truly the schools are protecting the students, that is the most important thing, but that they recommend that, you know, there are different steps to take for preparing the district in case it happens. And so these first conversations are really crucial, but that if there's ever any question, obviously to go directly to the superintendent, and beyond that, it would be consulting with the attorneys so that there's no question that the students or staff, you know, rights are not being violated. And your first slide, you know, was talking about what the Constitution of New Mexico says, but obviously they also gave suggested guidelines, what you see on the screen right now, what to do if ICE shows up. And so it was really informative as far as letting everybody know best steps moving forward. I think that.
And I apologize that those pictures are not very clear.
And we did learn that they have not posted yet that NMSBA, as a part of our policy services and whatnot, they will give us the full slide presentation, but it takes them usually a week or so to get those up on the website. But that they did have this full presentation that we were given about it, and we'll be able to get that when Mr. Guillen gets that on the website for all of us. That was all I wanted to add on that one. I don't think there was anything more, was there, Walter?
I called Mrs. Jones right after, and she's working on it for us.
Excellent.
Well, like they said, there's subpoenas, there's warrants, you know, they can confuse them, they come into your place and say, I have a subpoena, and then I have a warrant, and you just have to know the difference between a subpoena and a warrant. And of course, you got, if it's a police officer, you always gotta come in no matter what, if it's a regular police officer.
It's who we have the SRO with.
We just keep our children safe.
Board members, any questions? Dr. Guy?
Please, two. Doing me well. You got a lawyer, it says the guidance you should consult with your attorneys. Are you gonna consult with their attorneys to finalize whatever the rules you're gonna develop for our staff?
so it's not rules, right? We have our FERPA rules that,
Those rules.
that everyone signs that,
Law,
but
law,
well,
law,
Yeah,
purpose
you're
law.
you're gonna come up with something that's gonna tell staff, this is what you do in the event of.
correct, it'll be a response plan, and everybody will get a copy. I'll send it to all staff, kind of like I do the newsletter. And so everyone will have it.
I'm looking at a section that says that, establish policies restricting public access and requiring visitor authorization before entering school grounds. Says police officers may access non-public areas of the school if they have the school's prior consent. I guess I'm curious as to what is going to be the differentiation in each of the schools. What is going to be restricted public access? Where does it begin and end? In which part of the building, or is it the entire building? Those things, every one of the schools is designed differently, so.
Kind of the way they referenced that in the session was, if, like, our Milan Police Department, they often will drop by the school and they kind of walk through at the lunches and in the cafeteria, and they're just there as a presence, right? And there's times where GPD will walk the halls at Grants High School, and so those are the common areas that they're talking about, and that's not out of the norm, right? But what they were saying is we wouldn't allow them to come in and pull a child out of
Classroom.
Mrs. Smith's third grade classroom, that kind of thing.
Well,
Or files.
at Lambs, it's physically defined what are the areas, as from what I can tell. You go into the building, you can't go any further until you communicate. Then they allow you access. So by inference, then that means that is the only place that they can go. That the rest of it is restricted. They can't be going down the hallway or into the gym to look around. And you were saying that we're allowing the law enforcement to walk around.
May I clarify? They were indicating, Dr. Archambault, that it is the organization that you have an SRO, the agreement already in place with, is who is allowed to go. But if you have a federal agency or another agency that comes in acting as ICE, that is where the differentiation comes in. But if we have a working agreement with the sheriff's office, with Milan, with GPD, those officers are acting differently than what the ICE or federal agents are. And that was the distinction that they made in what they were discussing during the presentation.
And they wanted us to, they said that schools, individual schools should refer them to central office and the person in charge of the response.
Well, we know that there have been some media reports of unfortunate encounters by Mexico citizens. And so that's one of the things that is of great concern to tribes and to others, is ICE here, the Gestapo, coming in and deciding who looks suspicious. I've gone to LA, those fears within my communities here within the district. Thank you.
Our Native American folks were fearful in the meeting and talked about that they had been stopped and had to have their.
Well, actually, they were told to carry their cards.
Yeah.
Our neighbors.
Yep.
Gallup's over. So the last thing, I just wanted to bring you guys up to date on the 180 day litigation. As you know, last year, the Secretary of Education made a directive, PED made a directive that all schools had to have 180 day calendars. Mrs. Jones worked very diligently on our calendar this year. We were fortunate as a district. We had a 175-day calendar with 5 days of professional development, 6 days of professional development. We were able to reconfigure our calendar. We gave up our professional development days and went into the early release days where we have 2 hours for PLCs this year. I wanted to let you know that a judge in Roswell overturned that, and so we no longer have to have a 180-day calendar. It goes back to seat time, and there's a lot of talk about local control for school boards, and that you should have control to set your calendars. And so it's a great thing for us because that gives us back our professional development, and that gives us time to put those resources into the classrooms and the teachers and really strengthening our teachers and our curriculum. And so so we the 180-day litigation was overturned. We don't have to adhere to that going into next calendar session. And Mrs. Jones will be working, and she will work to update you guys on the calendar as we start working on it.
Excellent. Questions, board members? All right, I think we get to move to action items,
Okay.
sir.
First action item goes back to the Black Education Act, and I recommend that we approve.
Excellent. Board members, is there a motion to approve the Black Education Act?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it has been moved by Dr. Archambault and seconded by Mr. Jaramillo to approve the Black Education Act. Any discussion, board members? Hearing none, we shall proceed to a roll call vote. Mrs. Sandoval, please.
Dr. Shambo,
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo,
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz,
Yes.
Mr. Lee,
Excuse me, aye, motion carries. And as you know, we removed item B, so now we are to item C. Mr. Weiner.
Yes, item B will probably come back in a future meeting once I have a good price quote for you. Item C, we are getting the cooling tower that we have leased for $27,000 a month,
17.
$17,000 a month. Is
Mr.
that
Jones.
correct, Mr. Jones?
17.
Thank you,
17,
sir.
I apologize.
That's okay.
I apologize. We have leased it for the last year at least. I would recommend that we purchase that cool. This is a fourth of the cost of what it would cost brand new. I recommend that we approve.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the purchase of the cooling tower at GHS? The listed amount is $100,667.22.
I'll move to approve it.
And a second, please.
Second.
It has been moved by Mr. Ortiz and seconded by Mr. Jaramillo to approve the purchase of the cooling tower at Grants High School in the amount of $113,667.22. Is there any discussion, board members? Hearing none, we shall proceed to a roll call vote. Mrs. Sandoval, please.
Dr. Shambo, Mr. Jaramillo, Mr. Ortiz,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Aye, the motion carries. Consent agenda. Board members, it's bills and expenditures report for January 2025. And the 2 bars as listed, 27,901, bar 19, and then 24,160, bar 21. Superintendent Weiner, is there a recommendation, sir?
I recommend that we approve the bills and expenditure report, the consent agenda items. I would like to note that Dr. Archambault and Mrs. Hunt Daly have both talked about the importance of going through these, and so I will just remind you, board members, it's important to look through the bills and expenditures. But I recommend that we approve.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as listed?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
And a second, please.
Second.
It has been moved by Mr. Ortiz and seconded by Mr. Jaramillo to approve the consent agenda as listed, including the bills and expenditures report for January 2025 and the 2 bars. We shall proceed to a roll call vote. Mrs. Sandoval, please.
Dr. Ashambo,
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo,
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Aye, the motion carries. Next, we shall move to executive session. The board will meet in executive session pursuant to NMSA 1978, section 10-15-1H4 of the Open Meetings Act to discuss possible or pending litigation. No action will be taken and only the items listed above will be discussed. Is there a motion to move to executive session as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All right. It has been moved by Dr. Archambault and seconded by Mr. Ortiz to move to executive session as presented. Any need for further discussion, board members? Hearing none, we shall proceed to a roll call vote. Mrs. Sandoval, please.
Dr. Ashambo,
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo,
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Aye, the motion carries. The board will move to executive session at 7:23 p.m. We shall break for a few minutes in order to get the Zoom going, and we will reconvene in
It's yours.
7 minutes. 7 minutes, board members.
okay, done.
Mrs. Lee.
All right. I will restate what our executive session was. The board met in executive session pursuant to NMSA 1978, section 10-15-1H4 of the Open Meetings Act to discuss possible or pending litigation. No action was taken and only the items listed were discussed. Board members, is there a motion to reconvene open session as presented?
So moved.
And a second, please.
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved by Mr. Ortiz and seconded by Dr. Archambault to reconvene open session as presented. Mrs. Sandoval, roll call please.
Dr. Archambault?
Yes.
Mr. Vladimir?
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Aye, the motion carries. The board reconvene open session at 7:57 PM. No worries. Next is action item, consideration of RFP final draft and RFP fielding timeline. We will take no action on this item at this time. Mr. Widener, announcements, please.
I have 4 announcements. We will have a special executive session board meeting on February 21st, this Friday at 5:30 PM. On February 26th, it is the early dismissal day for students, afternoon staff for professional development PLCs. Our next board meeting is scheduled for March 4th. We have talked about possibly moving that meeting to March 3rd. I'll be exploring curriculum and so we'll work on a PSA to see if we can get that scheduled for March 3rd. And then on March 18th, we will have our regular school board meeting. And that's all of the announcements.
I'm gonna add one.
Yes, ma'am.
Just for our district people to know, we have local science fair this weekend. It is, or I should say, the end of the week. Students do all of their setup on Friday. It's gonna be at the Fidel Gymnasium at NMSU Grants Branch campus. All of the judging happens Saturday for the juniors and seniors, and these are all of our GCCS students. And awards are Saturday night at the PAC at 7 o'clock.
What grades is it?
6th grade through 12th grade. Sorry, I had to jump in on that one, sir.
I'm gonna move on to future agenda items.
Yes.
Couple of very important future agenda items. We do want to field an RFP for board legal services. We do want to talk to you and share with you the GCCS disciplinary handbook. We have on here the NAMASA data, the IMASA data, health and wellness benefits, an update on that and how that program is going. Of course, we'll need a legislative update after the session. CTE update, audit report, Mr. Jones. We will be talking about the calendar and our ICE response plan and goodness, what else? Future agenda items. What else? Probably we'll be talking about the portable individual unit for the classrooms at GHS in the very near future. And so that's the list of future agenda items I have.
Anything else to add, board members?
We did have the benefit.
Budget.
I think
Well,
we
they
have to have
Okay.
another opportunity to discuss the budget, particularly the alignment, some of those things we heard at the workshop. They need to be done, so that's, you gave us a calendar, I think it needs to be fully developed. Okay, probably some other things, but I'm getting tired.
All right, anything else, Mr. Ortiz, Mr.
We haven't
Hammond?
gone long from being on this trip.
Right? All right, Superintendent Weiner, is there a recommendation for us to
I
adjourn?
recommend that we adjourn this meeting.
All right, it,
Oh, one more thing. Tribal, invites to the recent, I would suggest that we have an opportunity for them to introduce themselves. Like a meet and greet with the board, like, hi, this, that, that. I think I don't know who that official is from Baca. It's a new,
the new president.
So it's changed all the way around?
yeah,
Yeah, all of them.
All yes, we could do maybe a social.
well, I'm talking about on the board agenda,
You would like, so that's formal, not informal.
yeah, formal.
Okay. We can invite
Can't
them.
think of who she is, I think it's a she of Baca, true.
Anything else? Last call.
Thank
Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn our amended meeting?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
It has been moved by Mr. Jaramillo and seconded by Mr. Ortiz to adjourn the meeting as amended. Mrs. Sandoval, roll call, please.
Dr. Archambault. Mr. Jaramillo.
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Aye, the motion carries. The board adjourned at 8:03 PM. Thank you very much, gentlemen and lady.